Hello. Hello, everybody. Thanks for being here. I'm so glad that you're here, and I've been looking forward to this all week. We've got some great things to talk about this week. I have had some very interesting discoveries, and if you're new here, thanks for coming. We every Sunday night we get together and we talk about my favorite knitting book, Number Knitting. It's the original modular knitting book. It was based on a patented hand knitting method, and 5,000 copies of it were published in 1952. It's sort of like the compilation of a correspondence book that the author did hey Helen, over the course of a number of years. And anyway, it was only printed once and then it fell into obscurity, but we're bringing it back. So if you have a copy of the book, grab your textbook, or grab your copy on your phone or your tablet if you have one. And we've got some good things to talk about today. All right. I've made some discoveries and it's been an eventful week, I tell you. So we are working on a knit along. Hey, Bob, Granny Squared. Hello, Karen. Hi. I've got so many friends. My junior high school self would be so jealous. Oh, okay. So we've been working on the knit along. In the book, this is a tropical leaf car throw, and it is on page 145 in the book. Now, the original book was just black and white, but one of the things I did when I was going through the process of digitizing everything was coloring the photos where it was appropriate. And the photos that were just like Afghans and like flat items, it was pretty easy to colorize them. And I did so according to the colors that Bellamy listed in her book. So that's what this is. And the way it works is you start with a double wing, and then you work another double wing and another, and then you fill in these side triangles, and then do a divided square at the top and add some borders. I also, as part of the download for this pattern for the knit along, this is an example of one of the charts that I've redrawn. I did that for all 74 patterns in the book, but there's probably like 90 charts in the book because they were so complicated. They didn't all fit on, like the charts for each pattern didn't necessarily fit on one page. Sometimes there's like 3 pages of charts for one sweater. But anyway, I redrew all the charts from the book, and this is included in the pattern download for this knit along. So you can use it like as a coloring page to choose your colors. We had decided that we were going to extend the knit along from the end of February to the end of March, as far as like for prizes, if you want to, just keep working on it, and not be eligible for a prize, that's fine too. Things are pretty fluid around here. So these are the colors I'm doing, and I'm about up to here. So I'm nearing the end, except for my side borders. So I'm getting very close. So let me show you. There's been several updates in the Ravelry group about this, like the progress that people are making on this. And so I would encourage you to check out the link in the description below for the Ravelry group, but also specifically for the knit along for this. And some of the colors that they all have chosen are like totally different than I would have chosen, and I love it. I love the variation, and keep it coming. It's so cool. Okay, so here's mine. Whoop, there it is, and I'm at the divided square at the top. So I think probably with about 2 more hours of knitting, I'll finish out this divided square, and then I'll be able to pick up for the borders. So that's coming along really well. This, I think I mentioned it before, but this idea would be really nicely adapted to like pot holders, or like if you wanted to make a like put, you know, 4 of them in a row, sort of like a quilt pattern, that would work really well. Or you could just, you know, do it sideways and add arms to it and, you know, make it a baby sweater. That might be kind of fun, a little unconventional, out of the ordinary. So that is Tropical Leaf Car Thrill. And I haven't honestly had much time to work on mine the past couple of weeks, because for a week I was in Oregon, and then we were home for like a day, and then I had to go to Florida for a work thing, and that lasted like another week. And I left the big blanket project here, and I just took some small projects with me to work on the road. And the hats are really good for that. So turn in your textbooks to page 202. We're going to talk about the hat and bag of straw yarn. And if you've been with me for the last couple of weeks, you'll know that there's been a little bit of a saga with this. And so if you look at the original picture in the book, it's an adult woman wearing the hat, and she's got the same item used as a bag. And then we've also got it again, a picture of them flat. So I followed Bellamy's instructions. Oh, mine looks like a rosebud. The blanket? Yeah, I kind of guess it does. Yeah. Instead of green, I did like pinks and purples. Yeah. And it would look more like a rosebud if I did 4 of them together. Anyway, so I did this bag and hat of straw yarn, and this was attempt number 1. And I got the gauge. This was even a little looser than she mentioned in the book. And this is very small. And so I got discouraged. I tried again a few years later, and I got the gauge she mentioned in the book, 6 stitches to the inch, which for Bellamy is exceedingly tight. She liked to do like 3 stitches to the inch, maybe 3.5, occasionally 4, but she liked loose knitting. But so 6 stitches to the inch was like, it was a lot tighter than she normally drafted her patterns for. But I followed the instructions. I cast on using the right number of stitches, the right gauge, and I got an even smaller hat, which is this. And then I thought, well, what would happen if I adjusted her instructions? Because I thought there was a mistake. And so if you're not familiar with the way that she does her instructions, she has, let me show you. And I'm pretty soon going to get the camera set up where I can just like do a top-down view, but we're not quite there yet. And so she does the yarn, tells you what kind of yarn to use, and then she tells you what size needles to use. And did she on this one? Number 5, average. And then she tells you how many stitches to the inch, and then she tells you your box number. And that box number is also going to be over on the chart. So each box on the grid equals 4 stitches. So that's your box number. And so she tells you to cast on 48 stitches and work 12 ridges, because this is 12 boxes high and 3 boxes wide. And so that's what I did. And I thought, well, what would, if obviously that didn't work. I mean, if I was a newborn, or this would work for a newborn. But I thought, what would happen if I adjusted the box number? So instead of 4 stitches to the inch, what if I just made it 5 stitches to the inch, but using the same needles and a similar weight yarn? And that's what I did. And I came up with this. And if you look at these two, this one is a little bit bigger. It's maybe about 25% bigger, maybe 16% bigger. It's bigger. And interestingly, this one stretches, and it, like, I wouldn't wear it. I think it still needs some length. But it, it actually fits over over my head, which is nice. And I got to thinking about this picture. And if you look at this bag and this hat here, you can actually count the number of ridges wide it is. Like each rectangle, this is composed of 4 rectangles joined together around the center. And each rectangle is, if it's 4 wide, it will be 1 long. And so the height of the rectangle is going to be 1/4 of the actual width of the rectangle. And so I counted, and the rectangle has got 12 ridges. And so that would mean it would be 48 stitches wide, exactly the instructions that she provided. And I came to that realization, I think, this morning. And then, so where the hiccup is, it has the wrong gauge. The pattern says knit to a gauge of 6 stitches to the inch. Oh, maniacal Moz. Well, thank you. Maybe I just need to be more adventuresome in my style. I don't know. I'm not very stylistically adventuresome. I suppose if my head was cold enough and I didn't have other fashion alternatives, I was feeling brave. Maybe I would wear it. I don't know. I might just give it away. Thanks though. So anyway, the issue was that somehow between when she made the original hat and when her secretary or her neighbor, I think it was her neighbor that typeset the whole book, or like, wouldn't print shops do that? I'm not sure. Somehow, when somebody was typing it or typesetting it at the print shop, somebody goofed up on the gauge. The gauge is wrong. And if the gauge is wrong, that will give you an infant hat. And that's exactly what happened. And so I thought, wouldn't it be great if there would be a way to, you as the knitter get to determine your yarn and your head size, and you can make this hat in whatever yarn for whatever head size that you want. And like without like me as a designer having to write out instructions for all of it. Like if I could come up with a calculator to calculate all that. And I did. Now I'm no Excel wizard. So it took me longer than it should have. But so what I did is I came up with a calculator, and of course I can't share my screen with you, but pretty soon I'll be able to share this with you. So what you do is you measure your head from ear tip to ear tip, because that's about, in the picture, that's about where the hat is sitting, and it's kind of like got this rolled up brim. So you're going to measure your head from ear tip to ear tip, and then you're going to plug in your gauge for your yarn. And then the calculator will tell you how many stitches to cast on, what your box number is, and how many ridges to work. And I tested it on, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or 7 different head measurements. So I have like this one would be a size, I don't know, a size 7, but like 7 inches from here to here, at a gauge of I think 6 stitches to the inch, and it worked out. It worked out exactly to be 12 ridges by 48 stitches. And so like if I wanted to knit this same fabric, but for like a human, like an adult size head, I can just adjust the number. So let me see what that would be. So if I did 6 stitches to the inch on an 11 inch head, the box number is 8, I would cast on 96 stitches, work 24 ridges, and do that 4 times, connecting at the top, and it would work. And the math works. I don't know exactly how. I don't know how I got it to work, but I did. And so if you are, tech editing was not the trend then. Word. This is true. And I told my husband I was so excited about it, and he's like, "Well, does it work?" And I was like, "Yeah, the numbers work in Excel. Yeah." And he's like, "Well, have you tried knitting it yet with your Excel numbers?" And I was like, "Well, no, because I just did it this morning. I can't knit that fast." So, anyway, if any of you want to test this out and see if my numbers are correct, like if the little Excel spreadsheet calculator thing works, um, email me or maybe message me on Instagram or something. My email is kelly@knitswag.com. But I would love for some of you to test this. It's a super easy pattern. There's no increases, there's no decreases. It's just rectangles. And that's, I think, one of the things that got me. Like, I overlooked this pattern for like 7 years because I was like, it's just rectangles. Like, how hard can it be? Hard, because the gauge is wrong in the book. But now that I've figured out like the proportion, like the measurement to use in conjunction with the gauge, I'm excited. Like, I want to knit more of these, and they're just rectangles. Um, but I'm excited about it, and they're fun. You can use whatever yarn you want. Your gauge, your yarn, your choice, your hat. So that's what I've been working on. Did I show you? I think I showed you the blue one. Yeah, because I tried it on already. But it's bigger. It's just, oh gosh, I'm excited about this hat. And because it's garter stitch, you can also reverse it. Like, if you don't like the striping maybe on one way, but you like it on the other side, you could totally reverse it, and that would work too. All right. Let's talk about the Tarzetto hat. This one got me. I think I made 4 of these. And if you're newish here and you haven't seen the Tarzetto hat, let me explain. I made a shawl. Of course, I don't have one here now. I made a shawl. It's triangular. It's super fun pattern. And then I made a hat based on it. Whoops. Nostipine. Sorry for the background noise. Then I made a hat, and it's like a skull cap, which is nice. It's got a little bit of a funkier shape at the top on the thicker yarns. And so I kept trying to revise the pattern to make it work the way I wanted. And some of it was like the thicker yarns, it's got an odd Smurf shape. So I kept trying with different yarns, different methods, different gauges. And this whole thing is, again, on that stitch calculator method that I like to use. So you can like plug in your gauge, your yarn, and your head size and all that, and it'll spit you out all the numbers that you need. Hey, Stephanie. And it works great for multiple colors. And then when I got to the 4th one, I think I was distracted when I was doing the last portion because it has a big, it has a giant hole in it where I did my chart wrong. But anyway, I decided, rather than just shelf this thing, I need to open it up for testing and really put it through its paces so that other people can tell me how difficult or how easy or maybe how fun it is to work. Yeah, so I think I'll put together some tests for this hat and the Tarzetto hat, as well as this I think I'm going to call this a 4-pointed hat, because originally in the pattern it was called Bag and Hat of Straw Yarn, which is not a catchy name. Anyway, so I'm going to put together two tests over on Yarn Pond, but you can also just email me and I'll send you the details. So hat drama. Those are good portable projects, but if you're trying to draft a new pattern and work out the technical details, make sure that you have enough brain power, and don't do it when you're tired, because that's how you get in trouble. Okay. Next up, let's talk about the copper cardigan. Okay, copper cardigan is on page 216. And the picture of it is pretty small. The picture is on page 215. and you can't really see all the details. It's right here. And I don't think this picture does it justice. You can kind of see that there's some sparkly bits in the cuffs a little bit. So let me show you. I'll show you the original chart and then the one I redrew. So here's the original chart. And this is interesting. It's like a deviation from the way Bellamy normally did her patterns, because normally she would number by units. So you got, unit 1, unit 2, unit 3, unit 4, like here in the tropical leaf car throw, the individual units are numbered. And in this pattern, she deviated from that. And it was puzzling for me, which is probably why I didn't knit it for all these years. And so for this, what she does, she has you knit by row. So you're going to do all of these, and she also has you change needle size as you go. So you're going to, start with a 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then go back. And then you're going to work row 3, row 4, row 5. And then she has you do the same idea. You're going to work by row going up the back, and then by row on the other side of the back. And interestingly, even though these are connected in the chart, in the original pattern, they're worked separately. And so then she actually has instructions for stitching these together at the end. And then you work kind of like around in a circle from the sleeve in. And then you work row, starting at the top here, going back and forth, and then round and round. And so the angle of the diagonal changes, depending on which direction that you're working. And I think that's worthwhile to note. Then when you've knitted all the rest of that, then you throw in a thread of like a tinsel or sparkly yarn. I got some sequin yarn, and use it as a carrying yarn. And then you come back and do these other ones. And I guess you're at the collar and then at the top. I guess that would be the back, like at the waistband. So this has got a pretty big, she calls it a lap over. Those two full width divided rows of divided squares. Because normally if you have like a button band, button bands are like a couple inches, but this one is like a full 4.5 inches that's going to lap over. Okay, let me show you the chart that I did for that. Here we go. And I'm still in the process of figuring out how to kind of come to how to communicate the needle size, because she has you work on the sleeves, work the smaller size needles at the wrist, and then you increase your needle size going up toward the shoulder. So that'll make the shoulders wider and the sleeves are more tapered. That makes sense. But then she also has you work the whole body here on a different needle size. And so the whole thing is constantly changing needle sizes, which is, if you're not accustomed to that, it can be confusing. And if you spent 2 weeks traveling and you keep losing knitting needles, that's frustrating. That happened to me twice in the last 2 weeks. Oh, okay. So I went on my trip. I packed all the knitting needles that I needed. I thought I packed all the knitting needles that I needed because I needed 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, and 10. I thought I packed all those. I packed totally wrong. I had the wrong size needles, but I was on the trip for a couple of weeks and I was like, what am I going to do? The place we were in didn't have a yarn shop. So I had to go to Walmart to get, crossing my fingers, hoping that Walmart had bamboo knitting needles. I didn't have high hopes. And so we went to Walmart in a town that has probably about 5 knitters and a million people. And we're looking at knitting needles, and I'm looking at all these aluminum ones, the cheap ones that make too much noise and they're cold and they're clickety clacky. And I was like, oh, am I gonna have to buy the aluminum knitting needles from Walmart? And Steve, my husband, he was there looking with me, and he's like, "Oh, look, there's bamboo circular needles." And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" I'm like, "What?" They only had it in like 2 sizes. No joke. Walmart sells bamboo circular knitting needles. I think they're from Lion Brand. Have you ever seen anything like this? It's like it's like polyethylene tubing from the hardware store. And I looked at it and I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, that looks ridiculous. But they were $4.50 and they were the size I needed and they were bamboo. And I was like, well, emergency knitting needles. Okay. But I started knitting with them. They're not great. They're not awful. But okay, so we talked a couple of weeks ago about if you knit lace weight yarn on really big needles, sometimes to get the, like, if there's a big difference in diameter between your lace cable thing and the needle, so you've got lace weight yarn on like size 10 needles, to then shove all those needles to get them over that join is a pain in the butt. It's it's very, very difficult. But then I got to thinking, like, this could actually be useful for that because the diameter of this plastic tubing is so thick. It's like so wide. It would make knitting lace weight yarn on big chunky needles like easier. And it's only $4.50. Um, DJ says, I have some like that. They hang on my wall as a cautionary tale. Yeah, I've never seen these in a yarn shop before. And I've been in yarn shops for like 30 years. I've never seen anything like this in a yarn shop, but they sell them at Walmart. So good to know. If you're on a road trip or live in a place that doesn't have a yarn shop, you can now get knitting needles at Walmart. And they also had these straight ones. I haven't knit, like 15 years ago, I gave away all my straight needles because I lose them. But anyway, they have bamboo straights as well. And they were about the same price, like $4.50. So yeah, so Walmart knitting needles to the rescue. Granny Square says you can manipulate the tubing by dipping in hot water. Oh, that's a good idea. I had some knitting needles that they were more like the plastic, but they're like super rigid. Like I think the aluminum Walmart needles have got the same like thickness of plastic connecting cable, but it's like super rigid and it's got a really like strong memory and it's hard to work with. But like this, it's surprisingly bendy. I actually didn't mind knitting with these. They're not quite as smooth as I'd like, but I didn't hate it. So that's good. Sometimes I remember when I was younger, if I didn't have enough knitting needles or if I had them in the wrong size, like, and the only ones I had were aluminum, but they were like the aluminum coating had gotten chipped. And so with every stitch, it was like, I'd rather just not even knit if that's what I have to deal with. Okay, so knitting needle saga over. So I'm working on this this copper cardigan, and I'm on. Okay, so you can see the sleeve. This was like 4s, and this row was 5. This was 6. This was 8, 9, and this rows were 10. And so that's where I'm at right now. And the book says 10 ounces of brown in fingering weight yarn. Well, I think I got 10 ounces. I should have left myself some margin and I didn't think about it. Oh, it says the design as photographed weighs 9 ounces. Allow 10 ounces of brown in fingering weight yarn. So of course I bought 10 ounces. And I'm thinking that this is not really a fingering weight. This is like a DK or maybe Aran weight. And so I'm going to have to contact the yarn shop that I bought it from and have her send me another couple of skeins that hopefully she has. So anyway, this is what I'm working on. Copper cardigan. I'm not quite as far along as I thought I would be, but that's okay. Okay, so Stephanie and I met Stephanie through a yarn pond test, and we did the diamond design sweater, and hers was stunning. It was absolutely stunning the way that she, because some of these patterns, they're like, there's issues with them. And Stephanie was able to just like work through the issues, like fix the problems, like make corrections, errors, fix the errors, and just like it was amazing what she did. And so I reached out to Stephanie about a project that I came across recently. And this is, I think I mentioned this last week. This is called the Hampton Cardigan. This was, I believe it was found when Virginia's son Rufus died. They did an estate sale. I think it was like 2014 or something. And there was some garments and some books. And this was part of that estate sale. And this was photographed for an art collection. I think it was in North Dakota. Anyway, Piecework Magazine a couple of years ago did an article about Virginia and her work. And there was 3 pictures of different sweaters in that article. And this is one of them. And the other, I think all 3, there was no patterns for them. The pattern for this one was sold as a separate leaflet, I believe, through McCall's Needlework. And McCall's is, one of those old women's publishing companies that like has long since gone out of business, or like it's, merged and acquisitioned. And it's, anyway, the McCall's from the 1950s is no mas. And so this pattern is no longer available to, like, I can't just call them up and say, hey, I'm looking for leaflet number 5102. Like, there's no one to call. Even if there is an actual McCall's, because I think they still make sewing patterns, but it's basically a different company now. So anyway, I decided to recreate this chart based on all the other charts and my knowledge of the book. So we made a pretty good start on it. This is round 2 of the chart. And the first time I did version 1 of the chart, and I sent it to Stephanie. She did it. I thought this thing was knit like cuff to cuff. I had my numbering all wrong. But then after I started working on this chart, I concurrently began knitting Copper Cardigan. And they're very, very similar, very similar. So Copper Cardigan it's worked in rows. The whole thing is worked in rows. And you can tell because the direction of the angles changes. But Hampton Cardigan is different in that whoop, hold on. Oh man, there it is. Scrolling through all my boat photos. Hampton Cardigan is different. And again, I apologize, it's a little hard to see. The angles, the diagonal angles are consistent all the way down the front. And so all the diagonals point down toward the waistline. And this is, she did several sweaters in number knitting called Hampton, but this is the only one that's a cardigan, and it wasn't in the knitting book, the number knitting book. And so based on how I knew that she drafted the Copper Cardigan versus how the Hampton Cardigan was constructed, I redid the chart to be similar. So this is the new Copper Cardigan. This is the Hampton Cardigan. And they're a little bit different. I think this one's got like a smaller neck collar thing. And it doesn't have the, am I missing the button bands? I think I'm missing the button bands on this. I'm not sure. Oh no, it has the 2 lap overs. It's a little hard to see, but these are like a darker color, and these 2 in the center are lighter. So those are the ones that lap over each other. But I tried to draft this chart in the same style as this one, in how it's constructed. But you'll notice, look at the angles of the diagonals. On here, they go back and forth. And on here, they're all pointing in the same direction down toward the waist. And Hampton is also different because it's got these little peplum inserts in both the front and the back, and they're a little hard to see. I mean, it's very subtle, but there's just these little flares there, which is very cute. Okay, so I sent this to Stephanie. Hopefully, Stephanie, are you okay with me showing your pictures? Your knitting is amazing. I'm gonna say yes. So this is the side view. After she knit this, we determined that I had specified the wrong needle sizes for the sleeves. Like it should have been tapered. But any design relationship between the Hampton cardigan and the Hampton vest? Yes, there is. Oh. Okay, there's the back. See, it's got those little peplum flare things. Super cute. And the back, all the lines point up toward the neck. At least on my version, they do. And there's the side again. And there's the front. She still has to do the button bands. But this is, oh my gosh, it's amazing. Guys, she did this in like a week and a half. Stephanie, you're amazing. Amazing. And I didn't send her any instructions or anything. Like, I mean, this is literally what I sent her. I sent her 8.5 by 11, well, maybe 8.5 by 11, a piece of paper. Because usually, like copper cardigan, there's like this whole page of explanation, right? I didn't send Stephanie any of that. I mean, we did, we texted a bit, but yeah, so once you know how to read the charts and follow the numbering, it makes sense, and you don't need as much, explanation about how to do one of these patterns. And I love that. That is why in this book, she was able to pack 74 patterns. Like, have you ever seen, other than a Stitch Dictionary, have you ever seen a knitting book with 74 patterns in it? Of like garments? That's crazy. Oh, Stephanie's almost done with the button bands. Woo! I can't wait. I'm so excited. I'm going to have to, I thought I was done test knitting like all the patterns from the book, but the more that I get into this book, the more I'm like, I have got to make them all. I want to knit all the sweaters. They're stunning. And the way that she uses the gauge shifting to add shaping to the waist and the hips and the arms and everything, and like how her stuff is all in one color generally. It's just because a lot of sweaters today, they're like big and bold and they rely on stripes and lots of crazy beautiful yarn. But Bellamy stuff is all just like it's like elegant and understated, and it's very like 1950s glam. And I think that's so cool. Okay, so Karen asked if this was had any relation to the Hampton sweater, and I believe it does. So let me find out where that is. I got my my PDF, my digital PDF of the number knitting book open, so I can do a keyword search. All right, Hampton shirt man's sweater is on page 238. 238. So what's interesting about this is that I don't know exactly where she, like how she determined what the word Hampton was for, because the man's sweater uses the same crisscross that like copper cardigan did. And in the back of the book, in like the adventuresome knitters or like the lessons or something, she lists several different patterns, like the orientation of the diagonals. And she called this the ski tracks pattern. And incidentally, when I was in Oregon a couple weeks ago, one of the things I did was I went skiing. And as I was skiing down the mountain, like on the, just slightly above the bunny hill, I was, taking these like really long, very long turns. I was like, oh yeah, ski tracks. That makes sense. She probably skied at some point. So she came up with this. All right. Karen says, where's your Navy? Navy. I don't understand, but like that's true with a lot of things in my life. Okay. So the Hampton sweater, there's also two of them. One is called, I think it's Hampton, what is it? Hampton shirt with scoop neck, and Hampton shirt adapted for women with short sleeves. So this is the scoop neck, and this is the short sleeve one. They're really like two separate patterns. She for some reason decided to call them both Hampton shirt, but they use the same diagonal structure as the Hampton cardigan. So like the Hampton man's vest thing, I don't know, like design wise, that's not really related to these. So I don't know why she named it the same, but regardless, all three of these two Hampton shirts and then the Hampton cardigan, they both have those diagonal lines all going down toward the front, toward the waist. And incidentally, in here, she's got like the bottom row of squares points up. And so it's like, I think it's kind of about the navel region. Navel? Oh, is that what you were talking about? No, I don't understand, Karen. I'm too dense. Anyway, so these two are similar, except that one has got, it's like a boat neck. They're not labeled on here, so it's a little hard to tell like which pattern should go with which one. But this one is the one on the, where is it? The bottom. See, it's got that scoop neck, but the one on the top is like, it's like the black with the short sleeves. And that would be the larger chart right here. So this is the black one and this is the white one. Oh, I should quit butting in. I'll leave you two to chat. But yeah, so the Hampton cardigan is, it's very similar, except the Hampton cardigan has got the button bands and it's got peplums. And incidentally, if you look at the original green sweater, oh man, where did it go? There it is. It's got 8 buttons on it. I'm just trying to keep up, make sure I don't miss anything. So it's got 8 buttons on it, and I didn't understand why at first, and I was kind of debating back and forth with Stephanie about like how to do the button band, because originally I thought it was just like a row of, a lot of button bands you just like pick up along the whole thing and then knit out for 1.5 inches or so, which is how I've knit button bands before. And I thought that's how it was, but it turns out I was wrong. And once I determined that it shouldn't be a band picked up and then it knitted toward the center. It should be these divided squares. And it turns out there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, yeah, I don't know where the buttons should go. I thought there was 8 buttons and I've got 10 buttons on here. So I don't know. More things to fix. This is why we have to reknit them, because I was so excited because my number of buttons matched Virginia's, and then it turns out they don't. So so we still have a little bit more investigation and like archaeology to do to figure that one out. We're getting there though. We're very close. Okay. So as I was working on my calculators for the 4, I'm going to call this the 4 points hat. For the 4 points hat and the Tarzetto shawl and then the Tarzetto hat, I have to calculate a lot of angles and gauges and everything. And it's been a challenge for me because I'm not great at Excel, and I'm looking for someone that is great in Excel because I can get by, but if I need to know how to round something to like take, a couple of different cells and multiply them together by a percentage and then add something and then, round it to the nearest multiple of 4, it takes me longer than it should, because I just dabble in Excel just enough to get into trouble. And so if you happen to know Excel and like what MRound is and what ceiling is and floor and like how to put things in parentheses, oh Helen, you may be able to help with Excel. Ooh, well I could use some help. Because I go on those Excel websites and I Google things on YouTube, and it's confusing for me. 70 says 8 buttons. The peplum section does not have buttons. Buttonholes are inserted between units on my version. Excellent. I can't wait to see it. Thank you for clarifying that. I got to copy and paste this in my notes real quick because I'm not going to remember that otherwise. There we go. Thanks. Helen. Yes, I will. Maybe if you could email me, kelly@knitswag.com, that would be helpful because I want very much for people to be able to calculate their own sizes with their own yarn. And I think because I know sweaters, a lot of times sweaters will do, they'll come graded in like different sizes, and I'll see hat patterns sometimes and they'll say, oh, it's newly revised, it comes in 6 sizes, and that's great, but like what if I want to use a different yarn? Like, do I have to buy a different pattern? And so I would very much like to kind of overcome that so that the patterns, these modular knitting patterns, are more flexible and more predictable than just winging it. So Helen, please email me. That would be great because I could definitely use the help. All right. So I know not everybody has a copy of number knitting, but I have a whole video about the rules of number knitting, and I'll link to that in the description because there's 2 sections of rules in the book. And yeah, I have a whole video about that. But I don't have any videos yet about how to knit the units, the 7 shapes. And the 7 shapes are I'll just find it here in the book. The square, the rectangle, divided, square, rectangle, right and left triangles, divided square, divided triangle, single wing, and double wings. And these are pretty easy to knit once you know how. But if you don't know how, it can be a frustrating experience. And so I know not everybody has a copy of number knitting. And for those of you who don't live in the US, you might not even be able to get a copy from your library. I think there's 38 copies in the world, and I'm pretty sure 37 of those are in the States. So that makes it tough for anyone that doesn't live here to get a copy. But if you want to have the like an introduction to how to knit those 7 shapes, with Karen's help, I made these handy dandy little I think we're calling it a pocket reference guide, but it's got like, the basic rules, and it tells you how to knit the 7 shapes. And so you can just like stick these in your project bag, and that will make it easier for you to kind of like become accustomed with the shapes as you're knitting. And those are in my Etsy shop. They're like $10. So anyway, if you're interested in that, they're there as a resource for you. Um, oh, Helen, you picked up your copy yesterday and we'll have it till March 13th. Excellent. 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 Yeah, that's great that there's libraries that have it. I wish there was more out there. You know, if we so there was 5,000 printed, 38 in copies in libraries around the world. I know I don't know how many people still have them in their own private libraries. Not a lot, I would imagine. I would suspect a lot of these just got like tossed out over the years when, you know, grandma died, sadly. Uh, but anyway, that would be really fun to do, is to like put together a database of like who actually has copies of these. That'd be fun. Like a physical copy, because I digitized the whole thing and it's in my both on my KnitSwag website and Etsy, but like to have like the physical copy. Maybe someday we could all go to Rhinebeck and we could have like a group photo. The number knitting hardback club. Take pictures with our books. Oh dear. Anyway, that was all that was on my agenda to talk about today. Did you have anything that you wanted to talk about, or any questions from the book, or like projects that you're working on from the book that you wanted to talk about? Do any of you want to test this hat pattern? Or this hat pattern? If so, I can send you the spreadsheets for both of them tonight. Granny squared, yes. Excellent. All right. If you will email me, kelly@knitswag.com, let me know which one that you, or both, which one you want to test. I'm thinking maybe like by the end of March. So like, I don't know, 5 weeks or so. I don't really have hard deadlines for my tests. Maybe I should be a little firmer on the deadlines, but yeah, my deadlines are pretty loosey-goosey. So probably 5 weeks, because I mean, it's a hat. It doesn't take all that long. All right, I'm gonna make a note. So Helen and Granny Squared both want to test. All right, I will. So I've got you on my notes. Just be sure to all email me, because I don't have your email addresses yet. Be sure to email me and let me know, and then I will send those patterns. Nishibi, that's all right. Let's. I'm going to add you to the list just so you can have it as a celebration for after you retire. Yay! That'll be exciting. All right, so we got 4 so far, and yeah, I'd be curious to see, because all these ones that I've knitted up, they've all been in like this is both a fingering weight yarn. This one is kind of more on the worsted weight end, but I would be curious to see what it would be like in different, like a lace weight, and also maybe a heavier weight yarn too. Yeah. All righty, folks. I think for me that about wraps it up today, unless you have any other questions about the book or modular knitting. Oh, can I see the man's Hampton sweater? I do have it. You mean the sweater, not the chart? That's what I'm going for right now. Let's see. And this is actually knit in vintage yarn. I think it's from the 70s, maybe the 60s. I'm not sure. I found it in my grandmother's craft cabinet. So there it is. And it is the same front and back. Yep, same. It's got just a crochet chain around the edge, and it's got a 2x2 rib down at the waist and small divided squares at the top. Yeah. And since we're talking about Hampton sweaters, let me show you this one again. This is the sleeved version of the Hampton sweater for women. This looks a lot different than the book because I used like different yarn, obviously. I maybe should have gone more with what was listed in the book, but so be it. It's going through a rough patch, and this is what I had to work with. And it was lace weight. I think it was like lace weight on size 7s or 8s. And you can see how well, you can sort of see the diagonals. And also the Hampton sweater for women. This is the scoop neck version. And this I made it too small, but it fits. It's a little bit like a belly shirt, but it fits. And now that I'm looking at this, I think I did it wrong. Where's Hampton shirt? Hampton shirt is on 239. Probably gonna need to reknit that. This was when I was in the early days of number knitting with sweaters. Yeah, I totally did that wrong. Okay, so I put the sleeves on the wrong way. So like the sleeves should be up here, because in the original chart, this like X part down at the bottom is supposed to be at the navel, but that's accidentally where I put the sleeves. Yeah, I did this totally wrong. I did the back right. No. Maybe I think I assembled it upside down. Anyway, it's wrong. This is the women's Hampton shirt scoop neck, and the vest. See, in the she doesn't actually call it a vest. She calls it Hampton shirt man's sweater. I mean, to you and me, it's a vest because it doesn't have sleeves. I don't know if she even uses that word in her book. Let's do a search for the word vest. There is one occurrence of the word vest, and it is called a vest blouse or dickie, and it's like in a historical knitting context. So I do know what she used the word waistcoat a number of times, and when I look at what she refers to as a waistcoat, I think of as a vest, but she just called this shirt Hampton shirt, man's sweater. So I don't know, her verbiage is a little bit inconsistent. All right, so we're going to keep working on our tropical leaf car throws, and I've got a few patterns to send out to some testers for these hats. And please, if you do have updates to your tropical leaf car throw, I'd love to see your pictures either on Instagram or on in the Ravelry group. The Ravelry group is nice because that way, it'll be like tagged to the pattern for posterity, and that's really helpful for people going forward that want to knit it. Yeah, I think that's about it for me. I'm so glad that you all came. Thank you so much for coming. This has been real great, and it's a real encouragement to me. Since we've been doing this together since I think it was like the beginning of January, my motivation and my excitement about number knitting, it's only gone up. And so this has been superbly helpful for me in getting this project really moving again. Oh, Karen says, I was thinking of the man's pullover on 246. I think I know what you're talking about. Ah, yes, that one. Okay. The one that Karen is referring to is called Diamond Diamond Design Sweater Man's Pullover. And I think it's for men in only in the like the idea that it doesn't have any waist shaping with the needle changes. And this one is interesting because it's done on the bias. All the Hampton sweaters, you notice that they were all like straight up and down on the graph paper, and this one is not. It's on the diagonal. And so instead of the like in the Hampton shirts, all the diagonals are on the diagonal, but in this one, all the diagonals are like straight up and down when you're wearing the sweater, and the flat edges, the rising and flat edges, like the cast on edges of the mitered squares, those are straight up and down on the grid, and the diagonal is, anyway, it's on the bias. So let me show you that one. I did a much larger turtleneck than the pattern specified. And this is interesting because it's knit from corner to corner, from one front hip over the shoulder to the back opposite hip. And so it's got some really interesting, like on the back, some crazy adapted units. It's not just a square or rectangle, it's like a combination of both. Same thing with the sleeves. It's got some weird, really unusual adapted units. See how the back shaping is done, and these weird shapes on the sleeves. Anyway, this is also a fun one. All right, folks, thanks for coming. Thank you. And yeah, if you want, feel free to email me or leave a note in the comments, or reach out to me on Instagram. My username is KnitSwag. On Ravelry, I'm Document Geek, because I started that account like 10 years ago before KnitSwag was a thing. So, all right, thanks everybody. It's been great having you, and hopefully we'll all be able to get together again next weekend. All right, take care. Bye.